Today's story is about the time I went to Texas to be on a hunting television show. So this all starts back in 2005. Paul Thomas and I started the Timberhawk Backpack Company. We had a whole line of backpacks and fanny packs, a big rolling duffel bag. So during 2006, I was approached by a lot of TV shows looking for product sponsors and financial sponsors. I got involved with a show called Tex-Mex Outdoors. At the time, it was called Tejas Adventures. The host is Jim Miller. He's a great guy, a world famous turkey hunter. So we were one of their big sponsors for their TV show. I fly down to Texas and I'm picked up at the airport by a guy named Rusty Weed. He's one of the cameramen for the TV show. I find out right away this guy's a pretty unique individual. He was only about 22 years old. He had already been a professional cameraman in Africa. He'd been to Alaska. He'd been all over the world already. The first couple days we didn't see much. I almost got a shot on a turkey. Well, I did get a shot on a turkey and I missed. The first deer I shot on that trip, we were sitting in like a section of a metal sewer pipe with like windows cut out of it. So it was like a metal tube and we were both cramped in there. It was like 100 degrees. Anytime you touch part of this blind, it would make a loud noise. And I ended up, shooting this doe that walked in. She turns around and runs right into a gigantic cactus, like full speed. That was pretty crazy. So the rest of the time kind of went like that. In West Texas, there's a lot of wild free-ranging animals that actually are not native, like the axis deer from India and all kinds of African game. I end up shooting an axis deer. The cool thing about axis deer is that they actually have a gallbladder. And so a lot of the gaminess that's associated with other venison, you don't have that with the axis deer because this gallbladder does something to make the meat taste better. I don't know. This meat tastes so good. So I shoot the deer. We're supposed to leave the next day. The guys back at the camp, they process the deer, cut it up for me and everything and put it in a cooler. But it's not like vacuum sealed or anything. Me and Rusty go out that night and we go to the bars and everything and we get kind of tore up. Come home really late and then I barely wake up in time. So Rusty drives me to the airport and we had that cooler full of meat. We run inside, I check my main bag in, and then I tell them, this is deer meat. So they set the cooler on the conveyor belt that goes up into the x-ray machine. And as it's going up, it kind of tips over, and I see blood running down the side of the conveyor belt, and I just pretend like that's not happening. So a guy runs over and grabs the cooler and says, hey, this meat is improperly packaged. There's no way you can fly with it, just dripping blood all over the place. The plane is already boarded. They're about to push off from the gate. You got to get on the plane. All right, well, can you at least wrap up the meat better or let's just put some plastic around it or something like that, I kind of argue with the guy there for a few minutes. Everything seems fine, it's just going to work out. They're going to wrap it up and take care of it for me. So I just take off. I'm the last guy on the plane. I'm sitting right at the front of the plane. And I look out the window and I can see they still have the conveyor belt for loading the bags, waiting for my last piece of luggage. And I'm just so relieved that I'm going to get to fly home with this awesome axis deer meat because there's nowhere else I can get it. I see a guy come out with the cooler and they set the cooler on the conveyor belt. Sweet. It's coming up and then it stops. It's just sitting there. I see a guy come out and he's wearing a suit. It's not like one of the guys with the flashlights and all that and the vest. This guy is wearing a suit, runs out and he looks at the conveyor belt and then he looks up at my window, makes direct eye contact with me and he goes, what am I gonna actually get off the plane? And he's I see him come around and he comes into the plane. Look, man, you can't take that cooler of meat with you. It's not even wrapped up and blah, blah. All right. And everybody's looking at me dude, what's the first time you flew with a dead deer before or what, bro? What's your deal, man? They just took the cooler off the conveyor belt, closed up the plane. So I came home without my axis deer meat, super bummed. And even the footage that I shot during that trip never even made it into the TV show, any episode of the TV show, because of course, all these hunting shows The owners of the show got in some kind of argument. One guy was holding all the footage hostage until he got what he wanted from the other person or whatever. There's always these stupid things with these hunting TV shows. So, but I love Jim Miller, great guy. Rusty Weed, one of my good friends. I had a great time that week, but I'm out of the hunting industry anyway. Timberhawk was a great brand. I sold the company in 2011, and they're still around. Check out Timberhawk. Thanks a lot for tuning in to the best of my recollection. I'll have another story for you another time.